We're joined by former lawyer, diplomat and adjunct fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs, Georgina Downer. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you feeling this morning, by the way? Are you okay?
We're doing health checks.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I'm feeling good, actually.
Yeah. Excellent.
I mean, I got up at 4 a.m. That's always a struggle.
And what's wrong with that?
But you both would have got up much earlier than that. So.
Yeah, stop complaining.
Exactly.
Indeed.
Your first pick this morning is North Korea, no surprise.
Well, indeed. I mean, a really fraught situation and really becoming, especially for the people in Japan, what a terrifying experience to have woken up at 6 a.m. yesterday morning to alerts on their mobile phones and radios that there was a missile headed for them. And
to get to bomb shelters which didn't necessarily exist
right,
where they
that's
lived.
Right. Someone was interviewed saying that the advice was to get into a basement. Well, Japan doesn't really have basements. It's sort of not the way they set up their houses. So, yeah, people were just sitting there going, well, there's not much I can do. But a terrifying experience. Anyway, Mark Knight of the Herald Sun, the cartoonist, has made a bit of light of this situation with a great cartoon of Kim Jong-un riding on his intercontinental ballistic missile over the top of what looks like Japan.
Should we put a graphic content warning out ahead of this? Yuck.
I know. But I mean, a wicked problem for Japan, South Korea, Australia and the US allies to deal with. And extraordinary, I was reading that Russia, despite these sanctions, the UN Security Council passing really draconian sanctions on North Korea, you had a Russian travel agency in Moscow opening up the other day offering trips to North Korea. So I'm not quite sure what the Russian commitment to implementing the sanctions are.
You have to ask serious questions. Let's stay in our region. The Financial Review, Georgina, has a story about Australia helping fight Islamic State extremists in the Philippines.
That's right. So you will be very much aware of the fight going on in Marawi City with Islamic State extremists there. And Australia this week has announced that they've offered to help train the Philippine military. The Philippine military is very good at jungle warfare, I understand, but has not so much experience with urban combat, which Australia does have a lot of experience in, given its time spent in the Middle East fighting there. So Australia will be sending trainers over to support the Philippine military in that respect.
Because this is an extraordinary conflict, isn't it? And one that could really prove to be, I mean, in 10 years' time we could look back at this and say this was the beginning of something else in our region.
Cannot be complacent about this. Not only the threat to the Philippines itself, but how that flows over to other Southeast Asian nations. You've got Indonesia very close by, with a very obviously an Islamic country, but there is pockets in Indonesia of hardline Islamists there. How it could spread into Indonesia, but then flow over to Australia as well. So a really, really, really serious issue on our doorstep, and it's absolutely the right decision for Australia to assist there.
Now, silence is truly golden for kids.
Apparently. So Duke University in the United States has done some study on the benefits of silence to children, also adults, but particularly children. And it's recommending, I think, 2 hours of silence a day for children.
2 hours?
Yes.
That's not counting sleep time, I'm assuming.
I'm assuming it's not. The idea behind this is that it stimulates the hippocampus, which helps memory and emotions. And they're recommending things like cloud watching and bird watching.
Yeah, right, that's going to work.
I'm thinking of my 5- and 3-year-old thinking, 2 hours of silence watching clouds isn't going to happen. That's something to aspire to, nonetheless.
Mummy, why does that cloud look different to that cloud? Mummy, yeah.
Be quiet.
Be quiet, exactly. Shut up.
It's a very interesting survey, though, because if you think about how we respond to noise, it's changed dramatically. I mean, once upon a time we were all told to study in silence. Now kids study with noise. That's how they sort of focus on what they're doing, and the schools don't discourage it. So, you know, I wonder about that, you know. I would have thought that that was quite an old-fashioned approach.
Children should be seen and not heard. Obviously, was
Exactly.
prescient, wasn't it?
Until they're 20.
Hey, let's finish with the Australian. It has a report on possible changes to curriculums in some schools.
Yeah, so the Australian's reporting on a study commissioned by Nigel Scullion, the Indigenous Affairs Minister. He's commissioned Melbourne Uni to look at ways to improve the teaching of pre-settlement Indigenous history in schools. Well, I think this is a good idea. I think there's a lot that could be done on the teaching history in schools. There's already a cross-curriculum priority for Australia's Indigenous people and their cultures, which schools have to implement. And the Australian, if you have children, you'll absolutely be aware the Australian curriculum is jam-packed full of priorities and requirements to teach. So whilst this is I think this is a good move, especially addressing history teaching in schools. Is it yet another thing that teachers are lugged with to be rolling out into the classroom at the expense of obviously very serious problems with our literacy and numeracy in schools?
A good understanding of the full breadth of Australian history is not such a bad thing for young kids, Georgina.
It's not at all, but I think there's quite a lack of history, lack of teaching too about our foundations of our Western civilisation, about why we have the rule of law, why we have a democratic system, which we have inherited from the British, and there's very poor teaching of the importance of those traditions as well. So a lot of tensions to balance, and a discussion worth having.